episode is about making the cut. Making the cut. What we're doing is reviewing the business, the barbershop, the next cut, Barbershop 3. So, hope you caught the last episode where we focus on the beauty shop and the business in that movie, Gina's Beauty Shop. Today, we are looking into what it takes to make the cut, literally and figuratively. And I must say, if you do not operate your business with a continuity plan, you are not making the cut. You are not making the cut. There are veteran business owners, entrepreneurs, small business owner, medium size will argue this and say, I have been very successful for many, many years. I have never had to have a continuity plan, and this is not true. No business is 100% successful without a continuity plan. Having a continuity plan does not prevent disruptions, does not prevent disasters. They will come. But operating a business without a continuity plan is not making the cut. I want to show you why. Let's jump right on in. It's gonna be key. This is exactly why I created this conversational book that has 101 questions for you and your team, for you and your expert. If you decide to lock in as a continuity expert, that's exactly what I do. Before, during, and after you lock into a continuity expert, you will need to answer these questions as basic conversational questions that you and your team need to discuss and need to get on one accord and develop or adopt a mindset of readiness. And it can be done. You can do it. If you are operating your operations without any concern of your people, of your assets, and you only think about profits, you will not be successful. You will run into several legal issues. And of course, those legal issues will cause brand, reputation, management issues. You will most likely mismanage your brand, mismanage your reputation. And sometimes it just leaves a mark that you just lose customers, period. They never shop with you again. They never rely on you again or trust you again. Making the cut can be difficult if you've never operated a business before. But making the cut can be difficult if you are operating a business and you don't have a plan as to what you do when things go as unplanned. Not just an outage, not just a network outage. If you look at the movie on Barbershop 3, the next cut, there is an external disruption. There is now a violent environment that impacts the shop. The shop was acquired, or is a family business. I'll say it was a family business. The grandfather started the shop, passed it on to his son, and now the son, who we see, who is running it. Some of them call him Big C, but it's Calvin. And Calvin is running the shop. And he's thinking about longevity. And he's been running the shop for a few years now. The shop has 30, 40 years in the game. And the shop has been there for some time despite disruptions, despite changes in the market, despite a riot that happened when his granddad was running. Despite all of that, despite the turnover, The shop has been there, and it is a reliable neutral ground, or had been a neutral ground at a time. But because it had been a neutral ground for a time, what Calvin decides to do is to, number one, partner. But the partnership happened before the company went out of business. Before it went out of business, there was a partnership. The partnership was with the neighboring salon, and it was stated in the shop, hey, the recession ain't never left the South. This business is in south side of Chicago, and it is not an area I'm familiar with. But when I think of a recession, and I think of how a recession can impact for a time, and then it seems like things just turn around. Well, it sounds like things are a domino effect, and it actually impacts some places longer than others. So the market may go back up, stock is up, but how does that really impact local small businesses? People begin to shop differently. If they're impacted by a recession, and you have a business to consumer business, not a business to business operations, you can definitely be impacted by a recession. And so joining forces is what Calvin did. And so now there is a salon and a barbershop operating as one. There is a partnership. Any changes that need to be made, any consideration of moving, that has to go through both partners. It's not an individual decision. I want to focus on the thing that is changing with the shop, because there's barbershop back in business, right? There's barbershop back in business. Back in business is part two. Part three is when there's the partnership. And you may not even have noticed in this transition or in the growth of the business that it actually changed names. And I thought that was cool. So I really studied the business of the barbershop in the three movies, Barbershop 1, 2, and 3. And I just like that I have enjoyed it for all these years, for the comedy aspect, for the relatability aspect on here. As you can see, short hair don't care, but I've been one to sit in a salon chair and sit around and listen to conversations, engage in conversations, and I love the atmosphere in a salon. It is very peaceful. I've chosen some good salons, and some have been referred to me, but um, it is a cultural, you gotta just be there. It's just if you go on a regular basis and you have a relationship with your stylist or your barber, it's a part of your lifestyle. You don't really separate it. You don't compartmentalize it. It's where you share good news. Where you learn what's happening in the area. In the Barbershop 3, what we learned is we have two opposing gang leaders and two opposing gangs. What happened is the shop came together to come up with a plan to get two of the opposing gang leaders on board for a ceasefire. A ceasefire meaning they wanted to stop the violence. We've seen in different communities where there have been stop the violence events, with the use of entertainment, with the use of music, with the use of the voice of the community, and the community wanting people to stop dying. And so I hesitated to share, mainly because there are really a lot of disruptions or disasters that are happening in the world now. There are the fires in California. There is the social unrest with changes with some social media, access to social media. There is the political unrest. So there are a lot of things happening at one time that I think are very significant, but I don't want to veer from my original intention, which is to, for this season one, is to look in businesses that are depicted in some famous movies where we might have missed looking at it from the business aspect, and we looked at it from the entertainment part. A disruption that would have been a solution, or would have been what the city thought was a solution to the violence, was to build an enclosure so that the that would limit traffic, and that there would not be traffic going through the area or through that block. And that would definitely have impacted the services, or being able to serve more customers. There would be They would then be in a low traffic area. So instead of the city seeing the perspective of the small business owners on the block, they actually saw the building or restructuring to be a solution for the violence in the area. Instead, the shop saw that they had to solve their own problem. And that's what I'm hearing a lot now when I'm hearing the disasters that are happening, that people, businesses, individuals, families are seeing that sometimes instead of looking outside of yourself to solve a problem, you can use resources, but instead of looking outside of yourself to solve a problem as a leader, you actually have to be willing to step up and actually find the solutions yourself. You're just as creative, you're just as resourceful, you're just as powerful or impactful as the resources outside of your operations. And coming up with creative solutions may be what you need. And what Calvin and the team of barbers and hairstylists came to the conclusion was that, hey, let's have a meeting. So they had a community meeting. They asked for input. Now, because of the history of barbershops being a major part of the community, a major part of the inner city, the major part of the Black community, however you want to look at it, where it's located and who it draws in, and the conversations that come up, it actually was a neutral ground for discussion. And even though it had become even though the shop had become kind of like a bystander, or had been indirectly impacted by the violence, there were individuals and families that were associated with the people of the shop who were directly impacted by the violence, including one of the student workers. He was actually killed, and he was on his way to the library. The city, though an authoritative party or authoritative entity, could have done the same, but the barbershop was more impactful. So if you are in operations and there are disruptions that are impacting your operations, again, as leaders, you will not always be able to resort to outside resources. Sometimes you have to be creative and create the resources or create the opportunity so the disruptions won't repeat or won't negatively impact your operations, and you can work with your local community to make this happen, because some disruptions are man-made or man-caused, and some disruptions can be halted. Like, you can be the disruptive force of a disruption. This can be a very positive thing. And so seeking to communicate with two individuals who could make the call for the violence that was happening, that was a good idea. Now, some of the people in the shop thought it was very dangerous. Like if you go and look at the movie, you'll see that what they did is arrange for both of those leaders to be in the shop at the same time. Now it happened like by accident one time, because of scheduling. So they are two people who are in each other's enemies, and the atmosphere of the shop changed just like that. So they saw how putting two people in a room together who have opposing views or are each other's opposition. Let's do it again, and then let's see if we can make this conversation happen for the ceasefire, because it's too many people, and especially young people, dying. And it wasn't about profit as much as it's about our location, our operation, our partnership with the salon and the barbershop. We're making an impact, and we are a part of people's life and lifestyle. And if we're not here, or if we don't say something, we may need to move our location, or the operations may need to close, or of course, it can impact the profit, and then the business can close. But really, the operations is part of the culture and part of the lifestyle. So they were trying to save people lives so that they can enjoy their livelihood. But one of the things they did is they hosted a community event. The ceasefire was for 48 hours, so they asked for no violence for 48 hours. And one of the things that someone joked is haircuts can't stop bullets, No, can't, no. But the intention to be creative and bold enough to think that a small business that's been in business for 40 years, that has been a neutral ground for two of the leaders of opposing gangs, that a small business could make an impact. Whew. It just gets. They had tried to steer away from politics, right? If you look at the history of the shop and the history of disruptions that had things that were impacting the shop, you will see that they've always had a place in the community. There's always been a need for the shop to have a voice. And we will get into the other two versions of the movie, part one and part two. Let me circle back. So right now, we've already established a continuity plan. Having a continuity plan is a must. Considering and establishing partnerships before something happens is a must. And using a creative thought process and creating the solutions internally and externally is very helpful. There are always resources outside of yourself. I'm not talking about the type of partnership that necessarily has to change the structure of one's business. A partnership could be something that's already established, that when a disruption happens, it's already known, that a plan is then activated, and then this partner of mine says, hey, your site too will be the rear of my business, and you will be able to continue to operate even though you have a disruption. Can already be established. A partnership, when I'm talking about a partnership as it relates to a continuity plan, It is not always an exchange, sharing money or an exchange of money that has to happen as a result of saying it's a partnership. It can be established, but the partnership doesn't change the structure of the business. I am just using the example of the two businesses coming together, Calvin's business and Angie's business coming together as a partnership because of the disruption of the recession, and those two businesses could have gone out of business. So that they use that structural partnership as a solution to their continuity. Partnership that they had, or a party or external party that they had a relationship with, was the nonprofit Gangster Good. So that was run by not Terry. I'm gonna think of his name in a minute. But anyway, that was run by the character that was played. Okay, it was called Gangster Grub. That's what it was. So Gangster Grub. Gangster Grub. One of the items on the menu was "Who smoked your okra," and another one was "Don't be so mean, greens." And it, like, those things, those things that stood out as it relates to the dishes or the quirky names of the food could make you even forget all of these good points that this story is telling about business. You might hear a negative connotation, but if you think about it, all of these businesses work together. I mean, this is just good to me. Anyway, so JD was promoting the food. He was promoting peace, and he said he was going to give the money to the Boys and Girls Club. So it actually helped with the brand reputation of the barbershop. So choosing good partnerships or including others in an effort when you're using your creative thought process and you're finding solutions using good businesses with good products and good services, who are well known in the community and have will bring people out. That is definitely helpful to the city, was that it was going to control the traffic, and they already foresaw that could have been a solution, but it wasn't the solution for their operations to keep running. They saw that being a problem. Calvin and Angie and the shop saw that the shop was going to be empty. If there's low or no traffic and it's more of a cul-de-sac, maybe, then it's not going to be high traffic. You can say we're trying to control the violence, we're going to cut down on the violence, but how was that going to help the shop? And if you're not addressing the people who are leading the violence. So you said that the reason why they went to the leaders is the leaders are going to influence their own people. So if the leaders are going to influence their own people and they could call the shots, that's what they said, the shot callers. So they brought two shot callers together to help influence and help make the ceasefire happen. And the thing about operations is, if you are a business to consumer operations, you know your people, you know your community, you know who shops with you, you know who does not shop with you. You know more about your local community than maybe bigger entities do. So when you are a small business owner, even if you're business to business, there is an intimidation factor that makes it appear the size of your business equates to the impact of your business. You can be a small business and make a big impact. I do want to encourage you, because you can make a big impact, you need a continuity plan just as much or more than the medium sized companies, more than the local government, more than the financial institutions, more than the departments of the federal government, because you're impacting locally on a person to person, or a family to family, or a small business to small business relationship, and you cannot keep winging it. So you will find success and find more comfort in your plan, or in more comfort in your operations, if you include a continuity plan. And if you don't have one, you are not 100% successful. I believe in you. I believe in your operations. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you about your take on what I've shared. And go check out the movie again, Barbershop, Making a Cut, because the next cut, my bad, the next cut. Making the cut is our topic today, and I hope that you found this information useful. I hope you were able to find specific questions answered, or find specific needs met in this topic, and that even if I was unable to address your business or your business model, that you can take this information and lock in readiness as a number one plan for your team. That you develop a readiness attitude, a readiness mindset, that you don't just think about the day-to-day operations, that you increase or expand your thinking, and you think longevity. And also, I really believe when you're thinking in the terms of longevity, when you are in the hiring process, you are most likely selecting candidates who, and onboarding people who are thinking of preventing emergencies, handling disruptions, sticking and staying when there is a disaster, being willing to go to site 2, or being willing to learn another part of the whole operations to make it work, and learn other roles in the operations, so that even if the day-to-day operations are disrupted, you will not have to close your location, or lose so much business, or lose so much traction, that you find a way that you can better protect your people, protect your customers, consider your external parties, but keeping people safe, protecting your assets, and seeing the bigger picture of readiness, that it is not about being ready to open the doors every day, but being ready to address the unexpected, unplanned events that can happen to you, to any business owner, no matter if you're a veteran business owner or not, that you are not safe from disruptions, no matter how much of an expert, because you have team members, and your team needs to know how to operate when things come. I am signing off for the COOP review. Thank you so much for joining me, your host, Coach Aisha. I really appreciate you trusting me with your time. I really appreciate you trusting me with these recommendations and suggestions. Feel free to reach out to me, comment here on the podcast. And I also post the 101 questions, so that you can actually start the conversation or the discussion with your team, and equip yourselves and gain more confidence in this area of resilience. I believe in you, and I thank you again for joining this episode. See you next episode.